Hi everyone, I'm Cara Wilson, and today my colleague Kellie Morrissey and I will be presenting our exploratory paper on modalities of participation, designing beyond the verbal. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the elders, past and present, of the Turrbal and Yugara peoples, the traditional custodians of the lands where this work was originally conducted, also known as Brisbane, Australia. Participatory design approaches strive for inclusion and empowerment in the process of design, no matter the experience or abilities of participants. In practice, however, conventional PD methods can be inappropriate for those who communicate in non-verbal or more than verbal ways, which leads to design methods which are exclusionary, imbalanced, and unjust. Commonly, PD methods require participants to verbally contribute, to brainstorm, to debate, and be questioned on their feelings regarding designs. Such participation is considered demonstrable in that it is easily documented in written accounts, and researchers can then infer a certain degree of participation is occurring. However, what happens in contexts where participants communicate in non-traditional ways, where verbal communication is not the primary mode of expression? This paper asks what participation looks like when we place value on modalities of expression that are beyond the verbal. Responding to PDC 2022's Senti-Pensar theme, we ask, how can we better attune to different forms of expression in a socially just way? How do we value these, even if they are somehow difficult to describe, but somehow felt? There's a growing body of work concerned with understanding participation beyond the verbal. For example, Kia Hook's Soma design. And our work follows on from others in HCI who call for increasing attention to be paid to multimodal, multisensory, and embodied ways of knowing and design. One such piece of work is the Modalities of SelfExpression framework, which my colleagues Laurianne, Bernd, Jeremy, Margot, and I developed in an attempt to better understand the various forms of expression and participation at play in the development of a tangible ball technology in the context of participatory design with minimally verbal children on the autism spectrum. So here we propose 6 modalities of self-expression which researchers can attune themselves to. These include sounds, bodily movement, touch and gesture, words, play, and creativity. We included words here as a modality because some of our participants use limited words, phrases, or utterances to communicate in design sessions, although these usually weren't generative, but rather repetitions or scripts. Each modality which we've discussed here can be of a fundamental or of an integrative nature. So integrative modalities, which are creativity and play, employ combinations of the fundamental modalities, which are words, sounds, bodily movement, touch, and gesture. The framework is only a starting point for understanding expression in these contexts, and it's non-exhaustive. There are more details in the PDC paper and in the original CHI 2020 paper, which is referenced here. This paper was conceptualized when Kellie and I began talking about more than verbal participation in design. Kellie observed that what my colleagues and I had been outlining in the Modalities of SelfExpression framework, while in the context of children and autism, was reflected in her observations and experiences in designing for dementia care. We decided to look into this in more detail, so we revisited Kellie's dementia care design ethnography data and retroanalysed it through the lens of the Modalities of SelfExpression framework. And this was in order to understand whether these modalities translated to any other beyond verbal contexts. The ethnography from which this data is drawn was carried out in 3 Irish long-stay and daycare homes for people with dementia over the course of 3 years. These ethnographic engagements led to the development of a prototype technology, Sway the Band, which is a series of batons which are pre-programmed to light up and switch colour to the beat of music playing in the background. The prototypes were adapted into a series of music sessions at care centres, and I'll now pass over to Kellie for her reflections.
The following excerpts from our paper illustrate how careful attention to minimally verbal communication from participants can nevertheless be understood as participation and therefore unfolded into longer-term participatory design processes. Veronica was a day resident who had progressed dementia. She was introspective and religious. She carried keepsakes on her person, a set of rosary beads coiled in her pocket, a small book of religious poetry with a leather cover purchased on a trip to Lourdes with her family several years earlier. She would often take out these items and run her fingers through the pages or through the beads. She did this during stressful situations, when the group in the care centre was playing a game she couldn't quite grasp, or when she was seated near unfamiliar people. Early on in getting to know her, we were sitting together in the parlour of the day centre, listening to music. On the TV was an instrumental version of an Irish ballad. Suddenly, Veronica reached her hand out to take mine and guided my hand in an elaborate dance to the music for a minute, before bringing it to her face and kissing it softly. She laid my hand down, and we resumed listening to music together. This early interaction with Veronica indicated to me that any resulting design should make use of touch and tactility. It made me think about how important religion was for my participants, as were small, meaningful objects which could be touched and rubbed to self-soothe. Most of all, it highlighted to me the expressive possibilities of hand-holding and dance, even if that dance was limited to staying in our seats. Some residents traced out the anxiety of being in the care home in bodily ways. One resident, Una, walked the halls incessantly, her brow furrowed, her hands clasped behind her back, her eyes downcast. Residents grew irritated as she weaved between their chairs to try the handles of the windows behind them. Strange behaviour like this was seen as disruptive by many residents. And though Una's anxiety manifested itself in these quiet ways, the way she interacted with her environment disrupted the quiet and polite status quo. Una's wandering was in part motivated by a sense of dislocation she felt in the care centre. In opening the windows, she told us she was trying to see if her family cat needed to be let in. At the same time, she knew she was not at home anymore, that the cat was not there, and that she was surrounded by unfamiliar people. Una's wandering highlighted that many residents in care are living in separate realities as their condition progresses or as they get used to life in the unit. It also indicated that these realities could intersect and clash. As a result, I oriented to design within contexts that promoted togetherness or shared experiences. I also knew I wanted to create something that flattened the hierarchy of differences that residents were experiencing in living, often involuntarily, together near the end of their lives. Props were often used to encourage participants to interact with one another. For instance, ribbons and ropes of cloth were stretched across the 4 to 5 metre diameter of the seated circle in the care centre, supporting participants to connect with one another and dance without leaving their seats. During one session, the participant Nasa deviated from swaying gently with the rope in time to That's Amore, instead flicking it at her partner like a whip and laughing hard. She then moved her grip along the length of the rope, a look of intense but playful concentration on her face, miming a struggle of tug-of-war with her partner. Events like these made clear the value of props in dementia care to allow fun and improvisation. Careful observations of NASA indicated to me the range of possibilities that design might allow in design for musical expression in dementia care, from soothing, gentle swaying to playful provocation of a partner, along to a sense of competition via a tug-of-war. This made me think that such a design here might serve more than one purpose, not just to unite a group to sway peacefully together, but to interact in unexpected ways with one another without using words. If you're interested in finding out what we designed as part of these studies, please check out these papers. And now I'll hand you back to Cara.
So, in responding to our opening question on what participation might look like beyond the verbal, our rereading of the ethnography suggests that it might look like touch, for example, hand-holding, bodily movement, for example, wandering or positioning the body, words, even if these are infrequent, play, such as chaining actions together with a partner, and creativity in situ, for example, singing, painting, and improvising, and sounds, such as those meant to spur on others or invite participation. So in the interest of time, I'll just touch on another one of our main reflections, which is valuing the feltness of participation. The idea that people have only participated if they've done so in ways which we, the researchers, can recognise, describe, analyse, quantify and report is reductionist at best and harmful at worst. We suggest a readjusting of what we value in PD as demonstrated participation and its associated reportings, in line with Anne Light's discussions on the writing of PD. If we value PDC's Senti-Pensar mentality, then we value otherness in ways of knowing. The feltness of participation should be valued, even if it poses issue for the scientific method and current conceptualizations of empirical evidence. these should be boldly nudged and should be questioned in the name of progressing design research. Overall, this work has aimed to highlight the value of critically attuning to other forms of expression and participation in PD work. I'll wrap up there. If you'd like to discuss anything further, please do get in touch with Kellie and I at the emails you can see on screen there. Thank you very much.